let's take our Bibles. We're going to go to Acts. We're going to cover the whole book of Acts today, focusing in our 52 greatest chapters of the Bible on just Acts chapter 2. You see it right there. It's the 33rd week of a year-long journey, summarizing the whole Bible by looking at the 52 most important chapters. And in my classes, I love it. They buy a study Bible, they buy a journal, they buy their maps, and they actually go to school wherever they are and do a one-year Bible survey. What we're looking at is the Prophesied. Now, if I had time, another of the 52 greatest chapters is Psalm 22. Psalm 22 is the Old Testament prophecy of the crucifixion. I mean, right down to every detail. Before crucifixion was invented, it's all described there. But do you know what it says at the end of Psalm 22? It's a prophecy of the Lord's Supper. And it says that all the world is going to celebrate regularly that event of the crucifixion, which is what we celebrate at every Lord's Supper. So the prophesied birth of the church at Pentecost is where we are in Acts chapter 2. And it took place right there. That's the southern steps. That's the southern wall of the Temple Mount, the 40-acre Temple Mount that Herod built. One of the engineering marvels. I mean, everything he did defied gravity, defied everything else. I mean, he just was an amazing builder. I mean, Herod was amazing. I mean, amazing loser, an amazing lost person, an amazing fool that gave up his own soul, as Jesus so eloquently said. But we're standing at the southern wall. We're actually on the steps that Herod built. I mean, that's our group. The lady in the orange next to her is my wonderful wife, and I have the orange hat on. And we're standing there where the church was born. But let's look at what the church was supposed to be. Let's open our Bibles to Acts 11. And I want to challenge you with something, just in case I get so wound up going through this and talking so fast you miss anything else. This is what God's plan was. God's plan was to infiltrate. You know, Acts 2 and Christ's plan was amazing. It was to infiltrate the world after Jesus left the world, you know, the ascension, to infiltrate the world with verse 26. So look at Acts 11:26. And when he had found him, he brought him to Antioch. This is Barnabas and Paul. So Barnabas found the Apostle Paul, brought him to Antioch. So it was, for a whole year they assembled with the church and taught a great many people. Now look at the ending of verse 26. This is the origination, the beginning of one of the most common terms for all of us today. What are most of us called today? Christians. Most of us think of that, I don't know what we think of that, we're Christians. Where did that term come from? There are like 10 different designations for believers in the book of Acts alone, and in the New Testament even more. Where did that one, the most prevalent one today, come from? Well, right here, this verse. And the disciples, that's the primary thing that Christians were called back then. They were disciples. They were learners, pupils, following their teacher in everything. What he taught and what he did, they were just like him. But the disciples were first called, and there's our term, Christians in Antioch. Well, why were they called Christians? If you look the history of this up, it was a derogatory term. The people of Antioch in the Roman Empire, in the Greco-Roman Empire, in the culture of the day, looked at those people gathering at the church and they said, they're just trying to be a little Christ. It was a diminution. You know, kind of like if someone's name is David, we call him Dave. If it's Thomas, we call him Tom. And they said these people are little Christs. Christians. They're just trying to be like Jesus. Act like him, believe like him, follow him. And they didn't like it. Did you know that was Christ's amazing plan? After he left the earth, he was going to flood the earth with little Christs. Have you ever been mistaken for Jesus? Do people that work with you think they're working with Jesus? Do people that do business dealings with you think they're dealing with Jesus? Does a person married to you think they're married to a representative of Jesus Christ? I mean, think about it. That's really what the church is. It's flooding the world with little Christ. And Christ is going to be everywhere, in every neighborhood, in every profession, and in every part and sphere of life, in socioeconomic layer. Wow. Well, while we're on the southern steps, that was the main street of the New Testament, where I was standing with that group. Those steps were where Jesus was carried by Joseph and Mary. It's where Simeon came to see his Messiah, where Anna, the lady that never left the 40 acres, it says in Luke, Anna, who couldn't sleep at night, who didn't eat very much. I mean, I love teaching about Anna. What a picture of us at our age. She broke into praise. That's where Jesus was brought to the temple at his birth. Remember, to be dedicated and the whole process from the Old Testament. And where he came for Passover for 30 years. And in his 12th year, he talked over the word in that area with the temple teachers. And they were amazed how well he knew it, if they only knew. Christ cleansed the temple area at the start and finish of his ministry. Much of his teaching. I mean, I love to, and I think I have a slide in there today to show you all the parts of the temple that are mentioned in the Gospels where Jesus was teaching. You know, chapter 8, the light of the world. Chapter 10, the good shepherd that we already covered. He was in that portico of Solomon. And then in John 7, he offered himself to the world. He said, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me. And I will give you rivers of life-giving water. By the way, that's what Pentecost was, the fulfillment of the promise of John 7. His activities centered in the temple area that's just above those southern steps. And the early church started there. That's where the day of Pentecost was. That's the only place 3,000 people could be gathered hearing the teaching of Peter. And it's just amazing to think of those steps, and I'll show you pictures of them.